2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is April the 19th, 2022, with today's myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
A much better sounding Stevie Nick this week.
Say, you're sounding nice and crisp. You've recovered from your COVID?
It's been like the longest 10 days. Like, I can't believe last week was only last week was my sexy radio voice. Like, it feels like we skipped a week. That's how long these 10 days have felt.
We skipped one day. So thank you to our listeners for patiently waiting. We are coming out a day later because I went on a little mini road trip for Easter weekend, which was nice to see family. I assume since you said it's a long 10 days, you probably didn't do too much over the Easter weekend.
No, I did not. I mean, the nice thing is my work gives me the Friday and the Monday off. So I didn't have to work at least.
That's good.
You know what I did do, Carl? Oh, man, I didn't even think I would bring this up today. You know what I started? I've read about 150 pages.
The Scotty book.
The Scotty book.
That's how bad your COVID got, eh? That you busted out the Scotty book?
That's it. That's what I started with I maxed out my movies last week, and I was like, I got to get away from the TV.
That's fair. Yeah. I've been doing a little more reading than usual lately, too. I got, for my birthday, someone gave me a copy. Do you know who Jim Gray is?
No.
If you saw him, you probably would. He does he's broadcasted pretty much everything. He doesn't talk about hockey once in his book, so probably not that. But he's big, he's known for boxing, baseball, football. Anyways, it's just kind of his stories of each chapter in the book is a different athlete. It's called Talking to Goats. It's an interesting book.
Oh, interesting.
Got some really fun stories he's got in there. So, but there was so that happened. We've got hockey happening this week, lots to get to, but you saw an interesting story coming out of Seattle this week.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, but it prompted me to want to ask you a question. So the Seattle Kraken this week got some new investors. Macklemore is one of them. He's now part of their ownership group. And the other one is Marshawn Lynch, the former NFL football player, former Super Bowl winning football player. I think Carl's the football expert. He'll be able to tell us. Anyways, Marshawn Lynch, this guy, like his post sports career is really taking off right now. Like he was just on some Netflix show with Will Arnett.
That Netflix show with Will Arnett is really fun. If you haven't watched it,
it is funny. I've seen the first few episodes. They did Conan, they did Marshawn. And who's the other one I saw?
Did you watch the one with Ken Jeong?
I didn't see the one with Ken Jeong.
That's a good one.
Is that the good one? The premise of the show is these celebrity guest stars do not have a script. So Will Arnett has a script. It's a murder mystery. And these celebrity guest stars have to go through it. And at the end, they have to improv their way through the whole thing. And at the end, they have to guess who the murderer was.
Yeah. Fun. Murderville, right? Is the name of it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Marshawn doing Lynch. That.
He was doing
video game, like lots of content with lots of random places. But now, NHL owner.
Part NHL owner of the Seattle Kraken. And he's had ties to the team because he was part of their team reveal at the expansion draft as well. He named one of the players.
Well, and Macklemore, a big part of the Seattle sports scene. I popped, my mic disappeared for a bit, had to pop to the other side of the recording studio here to get my Macklemore bobblehead from a Mariners game that I went to.
That's so random.
Yeah. So anyways, I got him hanging out in here all the time.
Well, keep him nearby. I have a feeling that he's going to want to bob his head. Yes. When he hears what Marshawn Lynch did after becoming part of the ownership group of the Seattle Kraken.
I thought you were going to say at the end of the show, when you sing a song, he's going to want to bob his head, which is also true.
Well,
that's
also
a thing.
Yeah, that too. So Marshawn Lynch becomes part owner of the Kraken. And the first thing he decides to do with his new ownership powers is take the Zamboni out for a spin onto the ice and do donuts with it just out on the ice.
I think that's the best choice that you can do. I can only imagine, like, if that's what, like, he's like, if I invest, can I just drive the Zamboni whenever I want? No, Marshall, you can't do it whenever you want. Can I do it right now? Sure. No one's using the ice. Go have fun.
I like investors don't just walk in the door and be like, I want to invest. Like they must have had to wine and dine him, invite him to a game to see what it's all about. And I just imagine him at that game, just watching and being so excited during the intermissions, maybe not even paying that much attention while the play's on, but he's just like, yo, that machine is amazing. And I want to drive it.
Where else in sports, other than motorsports, obviously, do you get like such a specialized vehicle? Because you've got like golf carts and like injury carts in football and baseball to like move equipment around, but there's no other sport that I can think of that has its own specialized vehicle just needed for that.
For the playing surface, yeah. It would be the equivalent to going to a baseball game and just wanting to spray the hose, right?
Yard maintenance is really what gets me. That's what I go to a baseball game for. I spend the morning working my own yard, and then I take the afternoon and I watch someone else work their yard. These guys are professionals, though, and they've got these baseball players running all over the grass, just making a big mess out of it. They're chasing after balls. It is unreal. Pretty upsetting, I'm not going to lie, but they know how to take care of it.
Yeah. Imagine the dad energy of these guys who have to tend the grass at the ballparks.
Hey, don't spill those sunflower seeds on that grass. There's a garbage can for a reason.
So this whole Marshawn Lynch thing, it got me thinking, and I want to ask you this question. If you had that kind of money, I mean, he's by no means like a multi-billionaire who's going to buy his own team, but he had enough money to invest and become a part owner of a team. So number one is, which team would it be? And number two is, what would be like your doing donuts with the Zamboni stunt once the transaction was completed?
So at least a few questions. Is it the team that I think would be the most fun to be part owner in, or the team that because I'm going to invest in the one that I think is going to make me the most money when it gets bought by somebody else.
But that's clearly not what the Kraken are, right? So I'm going to say the fun. What would be the most fun? Okay, which would be the most fun? I think Vegas would be a fun one to be a part owner in. Yeah. Then you get to go to Vegas and experience that. I think it would be, could you imagine how much of the Coyotes you could own with whatever Marshawn put in? You could just go there. I could become, who knows? Because here's the thing. In the NHL, we know that Zamboni drivers sometimes get to play actual games in net. Mm-hmm. So if I could go to Arizona, I become the Zamboni driver. Maybe I get to get into some game action when like Andrew Ladd and Phil Kessel are getting a day off. That might be a good choice. Vegas is the leader in the clubhouse for me, outside of like personal preference. Like obviously the Avalanche would be great to be a part of that, but I think just location and experience, Vegas for sure. See, I don't think I would want to be a part owner or investor in my favorite team. Like I'm already too emotionally invested in that. I don't also need to take the double hit by putting my wallet in the mix there either. That's fair. I just think of like the perks that you get of part owning a team. And I'd like to have those perks with my team. Yeah. I sat next to an owner of an NHL team at a game once. Whoa, that's interesting. Entirely unexpected. It's like a local Calgary celebrity. I won't name drop too hard, but I got given seats to this game. It's like, man, these are really good seats. And I recognized him. I couldn't figure out who until he was on his Twitter scrolling through his mentions in intermission. And I like snuck a peek to see who it was. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I didn't know. So this is my story. I didn't know that he was part owner of the Predators at the game. And I have a strict rule that unless they're playing the Boston Bruins, I will never cheer for the Calgary Flames at a game. Yeah. So they're playing the Preds, and me and my wife are celebrating every Preds goal. And this guy next to us is celebrating every Preds goal. I'm like, this is fantastic. Like, this is great. And that's when I started getting confused. He also got confused. I was like, I know why I'm celebrating this team scoring.
why are you celebrating this team scoring? I was like, I don't know. I just don't like the Flames. I'll cheer for whoever they're playing against. And I asked him innocently and idiotically enough, why are you cheering for the Predators? I own part of them. That's a good reason, sir. That is a very good reason. And then he left halfway through the game to go to the owner's box. But those kinds of things, right? Where you just get to go to the owner's box. You get to go do those things would be a fun experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like having access to the facilities would be super cool. Like just going for a nighttime skate or getting a couple buddies together and doing like a shinny game, like just in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that would be, I think the only place other than a rec rink that's more busy is Madison Square Garden. So that might be a tough one to come by. It's like, yeah, we can get you on the ice. It's 2 a.m. ice time though. You want that? It's going to be after the concert tonight, but we can get you going.
Where there's no ice. That was just the first arena name that popped into my head. Honestly, all these corporate arenas these days, I can't keep track.
Oh, yeah. Trying to nail down the actual title of any sponsored arena.
Off the top of my head, not going to happen. Madison Square Garden. That's the one. Like I used to be able to do the Staples Center, but it's not even the Staples Center anymore.
Isn't it? It's like a crypto thing, isn't it?
It's like crypto.com arena or something like that.
Yeah, it was weird how much people thought we cared about the name of Staples Center because it's been there for a long time to the point that like you do know it, right? And it was like, here's like, oh, let's reminisce the best memories of it as Staples Center. You realize that no one particularly cares about where they're buying their paper from, right? That's literally the premise of The Office. No one cares about Dunder Mifflin. They're a paper company.
And that was one of those arenas where I didn't even realize it was a corporate sponsorship one until they changed it. Because it's just always been the Staples Center. It was just normal to me.
You just thought that they were like looking around their desk and went full brick from Anchorman. And they're like, what should we name the arena? Staples.
Just never even thought about it. Never crossed my mind.
That's good. I like that. Well, clearly wildly ineffective for Staples then.
Yeah, clearly. Anyways, hopefully we get to see more of Marshawn Lynch on the hockey scene now that he's a part owner.
It's true. I didn't fully answer your second question, but I think just maybe I did. I want the perks. I want the boxes. I want the snacks. Yeah. I want the ice time whenever I want to. That's about it. I'm not even sure I want to go to the locker room. Maybe just to celebrate when we win the Stanley Cup.
I'd go to the locker room for sure. I'd make sure that when the players started showing up, I was in the gym working out.
You work out. I work out 10 minutes a day, and it's the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes before as the players arrive.
I wouldn't even be working out. I'd just be hanging out in the gym. Then when I hear the door open, I like get on one of the machines.
Do you even sweat? No,
no.
When you're as good a shape as me, you don't sweat. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I don't remember what show or movie this was in, but there was the one guy who, when the door opened and the girl walked in, he just started doing push-ups and it was going 98, 99, 100. That's what I would do.
That's what you would do, except it would be Dylan Larkin walking in, not a lady.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Well, I mean, I think the NHL is better off when you have things like Marshawn Lynch showing up. So I'm excited to see what he brings.
It's fun.
It is fun. Playoffs are coming in the NHL, and last week we got all 8 teams in the Eastern Conference locked down.
Yeah.
Still a fight for the seeding. Hey, they have, the Panthers are the number 1 seed so far, but they haven't locked that down. The Avalanche in the West have locked down the number 1 seed. They are officially the conference winners. But the chase for going at Florida got a little bit easier for the Panthers this week because one of their main contenders has a big problem, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes and the injury of Freddie Andersen.
He's been having a great season for them. It's a tough loss when your starting goalie goes out this late in the season after the season you're having collectively as a team. They got a lot of confidence in that guy when he's in net right now. Losing him is tough.
Absolutely. And still not known how long exactly he'll be out. Went for an MRI.
Came back negative, didn't it?
It did come back negative.
Yeah.
But off for the week, which I think for a team like for the Hurricanes, you don't need to rush him back into this. Okay. You have your playoff spot is locked down. You're just working on seeding. You need him healthy. They are not good enough to win without him.
Yeah. The crazy thing about this one is, remember at the start of the season when they signed him, like he was so injury prone that we were like, oh, it would be great for them if he actually makes it through the season. And this guy didn't get a major injury all season. And then it hits him now in the last 2 weeks. That's just brutal luck.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Has him, 51 starts this year for him. Absolutely fantastic. Antti Ranta as well, right? Like putting in another 23 and counting now. The health of these two goalies was an issue going in. Wasn't, but clearly still is now.
It's scary, man. They got to be a little nervous. I mean, it's a relief that all of his MRI and his tests came back negative. I'd be surprised if he came back this season. Like at this point, just rest and be ready for game one.
Like you mean regular season?
Yeah, regular season. Like just chill out, rest, recover, and get ready for game one of series one.
Yeah, I could see perhaps them getting him like a final game before the season, before he heads in. But I would be in the same boat. But in the East, the Hurricanes are not alone. Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins also down. And this is a much bigger issue than Freddie Andersen.
Yeah. Another tough loss because the Penguins doing much better than we thought they would this year. And Tristan Jarry was a big part of that. He's having a great season. Just pulling up his stats right now. I'm looking at them. He started 56 games for this team. And a .919 save percentage. So, their backups haven't been backup, I should say. Hasn't been terrible. Casey DeSmith.
No, DeSmith, when he's been needed, has stepped in and done a fine enough job.
But Jarry's your guy.
Jarry's the guy. And DeSmith has not been, he's clearly been the worst of the two goalies, right? Yeah. He's done enough to be a good backup, but his performance is not enough to carry this team where they need to be in the playoffs and what they've been needing, right?
He's the Jonathan Bernier of this team.
Confirmed, yes.
That's it. I just wanted to work that in.
Yeah, as you should. So with these two injuries, right, you said that, you don't think he's back in the regular season. Jarry is week to week, not even we'll reevaluate next week. We're checking in on him week to week. This feels like one that will continue on into the playoffs and would significantly hinder this team.
Yeah. This is a scary one for them. They're slated to play against the Rangers, but the Rangers are only 2 points back of the Hurricanes. So we could have both of those teams playing, Hurricanes versus Penguins, battle of the backups. Right. And it's also very likely or possible for Pittsburgh to fall into a wild card spot. They're only 1 point ahead of Washington. So if that happens, then they're facing, again, either of those two teams or the Florida Panthers. Yeah, I think, because it could be Rangers, Hurricanes, Panthers are the only three that they'll be facing. I think right now, with the Freddie Andersen health situation, it would be the Hurricanes that they want to play, would it not? I think so. Yeah. Definitely not Florida. Definitely not. And the Rangers have kind of had their number the last few times they've played against each other, if I remember correctly. Oh, and I'm sure you remember correctly. Last time the Rangers played the Penguins, they won 3-0. Time before that, 3-2. Time before that, 5-1. The last time the Rangers, they might have only lost once to the Penguins this season, and it was a 1-0 loss. So you remember very well, Nick. You don't want to go into the playoffs against a team with a record like that against them.
No. So do you think then, now let's say the Penguins do not play the Hurricanes. They play the Rangers and the Panthers. Do you think without Jarry that they can win that matchup?
Not against Florida. The Rangers, I'll give them a little more leash, but I don't know. I don't think so.
What about a DeSmith versus Ranta first round Hurricanes Penguins matchup? Who's winning that?
I still think the Hurricanes win that. I think they're just a stronger team.
I think that, yeah. The rest of the supporting cast is so strong. And what we've seen from DeSmith this year is about on par with what we've also seen from Ranta this year.
Yeah.
Ranta are arguably a little bit better, but also, like you said, a better team in front of them. But
so, welcome to the Elimination Station, Pittsburgh Penguins.
It's bold of us to eliminate a team that's locked themselves into the playoffs, but you know what? Let's do it. Let's rip that Band-Aid off right now.
I just don't think they're getting into the second round. Doesn't matter who they face, especially without Jarry. There's a lot of goalie news this week, hey? Because those are the two goalies that are out, but Carey Price made his return.
That's right. Which is great to see.
Yeah, you love to see that. He seemed pretty loosey-goosey too. You know, interacting with his family through the boards. Lost 3-0. That wasn't great.
Yeah, it's going to happen. You play for Montreal.
It's true. Yeah. So Carey Price is back. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to play another year next year. He said that today.
And can sign anywhere.
Probably going to go back to Pittsburgh, right?
Finish it out
there.
That seems like the likely place, but who knows? Maybe he's still. I know that like GM's changed since he was moved off, but
true.
Maybe he's still a little upset of how things ended. Well, not only did goalies have problems today, an interesting story came out from The Athletic on Eugene Melnyk. Did you ever read this article that came out?
I did read it. It was a whirlwind of an article.
So two major things that I want to talk about with this, because first off, the article goes into kind of the journey of the Senators with Melnyk as owner, right? Starting with him being the savior of the team, going into kind of the downfall of the Senators in this organization, kind of where and how things went south for them during his tenure. But was it not just last week that we also talked about the passing of Eugene Melnyk? And we kind of steered away from the negatives. We alluded to them, but we weren't going to like pile on at that time.
Yeah.
Now, with all of this coming out this week and this article and things, this isn't the kind of article that you can write in a week. This is an article that's been months in the works, talking to people, corroborating stories, getting different stories going back, right? A very well written, well reported on piece. Do you think that this close to his passing, it was appropriate for the timing of this article?
No, I don't. I don't think it was appropriate. I understand, like you said, there's a bunch of work that went into it. But I think that there are still some people, like, what are we talking about? 2 weeks after he died?
Yeah.
Like, there are people who are still grieving, like family members who are still grieving at this point. And it's just, in my opinion, it's too soon to start dragging his name through the mud. You know, there were some pretty awful things in that article. But a lot of that didn't have anything to do with, you know, his kids or his family. And that's who I think of, like, having to read this article now, and maybe they didn't.
I would strongly suggest them to skip it.
Yeah, maybe they didn't. It just felt like a little opportunistic. His name's in the news. Drop it now. And like I said, there's still some people grieving. It didn't strike me as, it's a little inappropriate in my opinion.
Well, I think with the timing of it, this is something, I mean, a big athletic article like that could wait until later on in the season, right? Release it on the NHL is always clamoring for news on off days in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hit him with some of that. It does seem a little too soon for me to release something like that. Something where it wasn't surprising news. None of it. Maybe the exact details of it were a little bit surprising. And you're like, man, that actually happened. But none of it was like, no way he would do that.
Yeah.
It kind of all seems on brand with how the team and the organization had become being run.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, to me, it didn't even have anything to do with hockey. It was just like, this is not how you run a business. Like, you do not talk to employees that way. You do not yell and scream in the office. You make sure your vendors are paid on time. Like, to me, it's just all very obvious things. Like, I'm not a multi-billionaire business owner, but I know not to scream obscenities at people in the office
anymore. That one time.
Well, but that intern was making me mad, Carl.
Look, when Nick asked for cream in his coffee and you put in milk, come on.
You want to see me mad?
But I think it does touch a little bit on the hockey side of it, because there was, kind of the exact details of what it was like, his meddling in hockey affairs and hockey decisions, and kind of how that whole thing became, because we saw, right, how he would want to make certain changes and cutting costs any way that he could. And you mentioned the business side of it. It became very apparent how much the business side of how that team was being run was impacting the on-ice performance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the players are part of the organization. Like, whatever culture is being built or run upstairs is making its way down.
Yeah. As much as we like to think that the players are an isolated thing, in many locker rooms, that's not the case.
The one part that I did actually find kind of funny was his locker room speeches to the players after they lost the Stanley Cup. And there was one other time that he did it. Those were the ones where I could picture it in my head, and these players sitting there with like half their gear on, still sweating.
Just entirely incoherent and very confusing.
Yeah.
That's the one part. That's the one part that stood out the most to me. I forget the exact line that they used in it. All right. Melnyk then made a memorable vow to the players, promising if they ever won the Stanley Cup, their rings would be the size of animals. He started by saying they would be the size of beavers. Then he said they would be the size of deer. And then it was that the rings would be the size of a moose. It just got progressively bigger.
And this is after they just lost the Stanley Cup.
That's good. That's good stuff right there.
That is good stuff.
So I don't know how I would fit a beaver, deer, or moose-sized ring on my finger, but I'm ready to find out.
Yeah.
I would like to amend my answer about what I would do if I was part owner of an NHL team. Moose rings are absolutely on the top of that list now.
Moose rings for everyone, not even for a Stanley Cup, just cause.
Yeah, and I think what you do is you give the moose ring, and then as you win, you start adding accessories to the moose ring. So instead of a ring, it's now a ring on a moose that's on a ring. It's kind of nuanced, but it's going to be good.
Oh, that's a work of art, Carl. I could see that in a museum.
It's really the only way that we can show it off, because you cannot wear this on your finger. It would be way too heavy. That would be your workout in the gym, is just lifting your ring. Everyone get their ring lifts in. Let's go. right. Shall we take a break here and be back?
Let's take a break. We've gone too far.
Seems like the only appropriate choice. Three, two, one.
We're back. Sorry, I was not ready for that.
That's fair.
My water. So, just a second.
It's understandable because we do this thing where before we start, one of us says to the other, "Are you ready?" We wait for the other person to say yes, and then we start. So it's understandable that when I asked if you were ready and you said yes, that you were surprised when I started.
Yeah, I know. You really caught me off guard there, Carl. Okay. I'm ready. We're back to talk more hockey. Before we get into the Elimination Station, we should touch on some sad news that happened in the hockey world this week. Mike Bossy, former New York Islanders Stanley Cup winner, passed away this week. 65 years old, which is young.
Yeah, it's young. It's unfortunate.
It's young, man. I thought he was way older, and it kind of prompted, it reminded me that these superstars from the 70s and 80s, they were young when they played too. Like similar to now, we call these guys kids all the time, but they were young back then too.
They were. And what makes Mike Bossy such an interesting case is the fact that he only played 10 years in the NHL. He had 10 seasons. He retired at 30. And with what he was able to produce in those 10 years, right? Injuries sidelined him. He couldn't play anymore, and shows the health and longevity of his career, family, etc., over a continued playing time. So in those 10 years, he won 4 Stanley Cups. He was an 8-time All-Star, won the Conn Smythe, the Calder, and 3 Lady Bings.
That's wild. He scored in those 10 years. He scored more than 50 goals, 1, 2, 3, 4, every year except for 9 years.
So 9 of his 10 years.
Goals. Yeah.
And the one that he didn't was shortened and then led to him retiring.
Yeah.
Just an unreal career, and one that, because of how short it was, his numbers will never be at the best of all time, right? Certainly, there are single season records, especially Islander season single records that he owns many of.
Yeah.
But he is truly one of the best hockey players of all time.
Yeah.
And it's sad both that he had to end his career early, but also his passing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, his name was never really among all the best players of all time, but I think his name was recognized by most hockey fans.
Yeah. And certainly, I know many, possibly one listening to the show right now, resident New York Islanders expert Matt, who, shout out to him, and Tristan, who are playing in the fantasy finals this week. But and part of the reason why he's a hockey fan is watching Mike Bossy play. So got to do it. Do you want to know my favorite? Just skipping through Mike Bossy's Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
My favorite thing. Do you remember a television program called The Raccoons?
No. It was a cartoon?
It was a cartoon featuring raccoons. With a large, I want to say their boss was an anteater.
Yes. Oh my God, Carl. Yes, I do remember this.
Okay. Mike Bossy was part of putting together the Raccoons on Ice hockey themed Christmas episode one year. And their boss, Cedric Sneed, wore a New York Islanders number 22 jersey in honor of Mike Bossy.
Oh my goodness. This cartoon, as soon as I saw the picture, holy moly. I'm going to YouTube this after the show. So one of the very first things that I did when I got a PVR, back when PVRs were a thing, was record all the old children's shows that I like to watch. This one doesn't hold up. I'm going to warn you right now. Their voices are incredibly grating. But hey, if you're not from Canada,
because this is a Canadian gem. If you're not from Canada and weren't able to watch Raccoons, go check it out.
One of the raccoons' names is Ralph Raccoon.
When you're coming up with a show about raccoons, you've used all of your imagination coming up with the show.
It's true. The names are not that inspiring. There's Bert Raccoon. There's Melissa Raccoon. There's Lisa Raccoon, Ralph Raccoon, and then Bentley Raccoon.
It's probably just like friends of somebody.
These are not raccoon names.
No. There was a dog named Schaefer. It's a great name for a dog. Anyways, I'm sure people are here to listen to us review 90s.
Also, no, while we're on the topic, nobody wants to watch raccoons. They're awful animals and they dig through garbage. They're not cute. They're vicious. Nobody wants that.
It kind of felt like a very, very poor knockoff of Care Bears. They're like, all right, we got Care Bears over here that are doing their thing. And everyone loves bears. What about something else that will eat garbage? Raccoons. They eat garbage. Bears eat garbage. Everyone likes both of them. But instead of them having superpowers, why don't we just make them work in a factory? How about that?
I love like the Canadians needed some sort of answer to the cutesy tootsie Care Bears. And they're like, raccoons. That's our answer.
I even love the description of it. Originally, the story was set in a kind of hidden world in the evergreen forest, where a small human family of a forest ranger and his children reside unaware of the struggles taking place out of sight. However, the second season had these characters removed as the premise shifted to an unambiguous fantasy world of a sophisticated humanoid animal version of Canada with complex transportation systems, broadcasting media, and heavy industry.
This is insane. They did 5 seasons.
Yeah. You know how oftentimes I think the example that I think of the most is Parks and Rec. A lot of people will be like, hey, like, you're going to like Parks and Rec. And they're like, I started it, but it wasn't great. And they just say, skip the first season.
Yes.
It changes significantly after that first season, right? And most sitcoms do that. The pilot, the first season, different than the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Raccoons took a turn for the weirder and the worse.
We're going to check it out after this episode.
All right. It's a good thing that you started on that Scotty book, because if you hadn't of, your entire time having COVID would have just been spent watching all 5 seasons of the Raccoons.
It is. And I will close the loop on this Mike Bossy thing by calling back to the Scotty book, because the structure of the book is Bowman picks his 5 best teams of all time, and he kind of describes them from a coach's perspective. And the chapter I'm on right now is the New York Islanders of the 80s. So I'm about to go into some heavy Mike Bossy content.
Well, and that's good, because otherwise you would have to deal with Bentley, the insecure child technology prodigy, or Lisa, the statuesque athletic teenager, who are also raccoons.
Oh, I'm going to binge the Raccoons before I get back to that book. There is no rush to read that book.
All right. We're going to make sure. Can you make sure to post on the Twitterverse your thoughts on this so that we can share it with our listeners?
On the Raccoons?
On the and the Scotty book, both of them, but more importantly, the Raccoons.
The Raccoons, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Should we eliminate a team from the playoffs?
Let's eliminate someone.
Elimination Station.
The Elimination Station is where we head to the standings and eliminate a team from playoff contention. So far this season, we've eliminated all 8 teams that are actually already mathematically eliminated in the Eastern Conference, and we nailed it.
We did it before they were all mathematically eliminated, so that's a W for us.
That's good. We have 2 teams left to eliminate in the West. Now, here's the conundrum we've found ourselves in repeatedly. The Dallas Stars have been eliminated from the playoffs. There are 3 teams that can catch them. the Winnipeg Jets, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Vancouver is 5 points back. Winnipeg 10. I don't know why I did it in this order. Winnipeg's 10. Vancouver's 5. Vegas is 4. All of them with the same number of games or less than Dallas. First question. Do you still stand by the Stars being eliminated from the playoffs?
I'm not ready to take them out yet. I'm not ready to take them out of the elimination station. We can talk about it further next week. I just think these Vegas Golden Knights are a little unpredictable.
So you're not even ready to talk about it, let alone do it.
We just talked about it. What more is there to talk about?
Okay. So that leaves us then of hypothetically, we could go even deeper. We could jump up because Nashville is tied with Dallas as well. Nashville has 91 points. The LA Kings, who we gave major props to, are actually below them right now. So Vegas, Vancouver do not even have to pass Dallas and Nashville to make the playoffs. They just need to pass the Kings. So lots of things still to happen. I know where I want to eliminate this week. What do you want?
Are we going to do it at the same time again?
We probably should.
Yeah, that's been our shtick all season. Okay.
Well, let's not change it now.
Okay, ready?
3,
2, 1.
The Winnipeg Jets.
I have to say it gets easier when there's less teams.
And when one of the teams is like significantly out of contention.
Yeah, man. The Canucks are on a heater right now. Like they've won 6 straight.
Yeah.
I can't eliminate them this week.
No, especially and with Robin Lehner still not back fully healthy properly for the Knights, with him out, and the Canucks on a tear. If we didn't go Jets this week, I was going Vegas. Gives us an extra week though. Vancouver actually beat Dallas this past week, 6-2.
Yeah,
so
didn't they beat Vegas too?
And Vegas, yeah. Vegas did get the extra point because that game was in overtime. But man, Vancouver is on a heater. The Winnipeg Jets, however, are not.
No, they're not. And they've had a weird season. Like, remember in the middle of the season, their coach just quit?
That's right. Paul Maurice, gone.
Out of the blue, he was just like, I lost the room. I'm resigning.
The room hasn't found itself without him.
No. But like that to me is a sign very early on that something ain't right here. Like the coaches don't normally just resign mid-season when your team is still like they were still in the mix then.
Yeah, absolutely they were. And they've performed pretty much on par, if not worse, afterwards.
Yeah.
Like Paul Maurice went 13-11-5. Dave Lowry has coached 22-20-6. This is not like it's essentially the same thing. He's not getting anything different out of this team than Paul Maurice was able to.
So what do you think happened here? Because the team, like this year versus last year, not much changed.
No, I mean, there's a few things that stand out to me of what happened here. I think injuries were a big issue for this team throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys that they needed to rely on were not there. I mean, Blake Wheeler's missed a bunch of time, and when he has played, has not been the Blake Wheeler that we're used to seeing. And that's a huge issue for these Jets, right? So that's one for me, is the health of guys, right? Like Kyle Connors missed a few games here and there. Blake Wheeler, 59 games. Nick Ehlers, 56. And Wheeler got off to a terrible start. It was miserable. As someone who drafted him in fantasy, I significantly regretted it. That's one. Connor Hellebuyck's been good and not great. He has not been carrying this team, and he carried this team last year.
Yeah.
So to me, Blake Wheeler dropping out of next level Blake Wheeler territory to good, not great, and Connor Hellebuyck being good, not amazing is the two biggest things to stand out to me.
Yeah, totally. For me, the big one is Hellebuyck. Like last year, he was a Vezina caliber goalie. He was in the conversation for the best goalie in the league last year. and he's not there this year.
I need you to look away from your computer very quickly.
Okay.
Spell Hellebuyck.
Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck.
Wow, you nailed it.
Did I get it?
You got it.
Yes.
I wrote it out without looking, and I switched the U and the Y. I did YU.
That was my biggest question. And the other one is, was there a C in there? I thought for a second it was just a K. At the end.
Did it. So yeah, those stand out to me. Wheeler, I think, is going to be on the significant decline moving forward, which is a problem for this. When we look then at how to fix this team moving forward, Blake Wheeler signed long term is going to be a problem that there's no easy solution to.
I mean, it's only 2 more years after this. It's not awful. They essentially just have to get through next year with him, then they can trade him and retain cap.
Okay.
Or they could even do that next year.
What's this say? Trading away your longtime captain to retain salary is a bold choice in that market.
Yeah. I mean, you probably don't want to do it, but if you needed the cap space, you could. Do they need the cap space? What are they working with here? Oh, so they got nothing this year.
Next year, they've got about 15 million in cap space. Players that need to be signed. Pierre-Luc Dubois needs a new deal. Paul Stastny's deal is ending. Other than that, this team is pretty much coming back identical unless a trade happens.
Well, Dubois is going to eat up a lot of that cap space.
What do you think he gets on a 6-year deal? Let's say, what do you think he gets?
7 to 8 range.
I would say 7 seems about right. Yeah. So do you, outside of that, right? And Paul Stastny, he might come back on another cheaper deal if he wants to. Seems happy in Winnipeg.
Sure.
What do you think happens to this Jets team? Are there any big moves that happen?
I don't think so. I think they just roll it again next year. Hopefully you get a better season out of your goalie. Hopefully you get a better season out of some of your core players up top. And they're in such a weird position because they're nowhere near like tear it down territory. Like they're not far out of the playoffs. They're close.
Certainly not.
Like one winning streak earlier in the season could have done it.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think you don't mess with it too much. And the core of this team has been together for a long time.
It's true. It has been. And the moves that I think they could have made got made at the deadline, right? Andrew Kopp, that's a big move, moving him to Winnipeg, right?
Yeah.
Or sorry, not to Winnipeg, to the Rangers. And so in that sense, right, getting 2 seconds was a good haul for him. But it did show me that they were more interested in a slight rebuild. And it has the flavor of, we're going to try to rebuild this without tearing it all down.
Yeah. Like, what's the term? Retool? Is that what they say these days? I don't even know if I'd call it that. Like, they're almost just tweaking a little bit.
Like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic.
Exactly.
Oh, we got to fix these chair situations.
Exactly.
People use that phrase, I was going to say all the time, but often enough. But just the, like, imagining that scenario, like the Titanic's going down and it's like falling over, it's slanted, it's tilted, and there's just some person running around like crazy trying to strap down deck chairs so they don't like slide off the ship. They're like, no, hey, we need those chairs. Don't use them as life rafts. Where are people going to sit?
Can't lose the chairs.
We need those. Those are our chairs. Come on. Yeah, I think this team is destined for, I don't think that they'll be back in the playoffs next year. That division they're in is really good. And there's a lot of teams that in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the biggest issue, is just quality competition. They don't have many players. When I look at that roster, of guys. Literally, Connor Hellebuyck's the only one that I look at it and say, oh yeah, that guy's should be better next year. Right? Kyle Connor, great year. Really like an amazing player. I'm not sure how much better he's going to do. Mark Scheifele, he's better than a point a game. How much more should I expect from him? Right?
Yeah.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's player after player where I look at it and say, they're doing what they can. They just need to add more quality.
Yeah, you're kind of right. Like these guys are all either at their ceiling or past it. There's nobody really coming up.
No.
Who's yet to hit it, right?
So we'll see where this team ends up. I don't think that they're back in the playoffs next year. Do you?
I don't know. I'm not ready. I can't say confidently, no, they're not. Well, you know what though? No, because Dallas is still in this division and Nashville. Either of those teams could fall lower next year. No, I'll say Winnipeg's in.
Okay.
I'll disagree with you.
Do you think Dave Lowry stays on as coach?
No, I think they'll go and look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable expectation. All right. There it is. One more elimination station left this season.
Oh boy. It's going to be a dramatic one too.
Next week, we find out if the Dallas Stars stay in again or what. But first, before we do that, we got to figure out what we've got heading into this next week. Apologies, because we have a game or we're coming out a day late. We did not get.
Oh yeah, we missed today.
A must-watch day, a game today. However, there were not many great games. There was no playoff versus playoff. The only ones, Blues, Bruins, and Flames Predators are the only two team games against two playoff or playoff contending teams. So if any day was good to skip, this was it.
Yeah, agreed. What about tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Here's what before we get into this. We're picking these games, the must-watch games. You're going to go to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast with the number 4. You're going to pick the score of the game and who you think is going to win. You do that, you're eligible to win a jersey. Adam Cull is in the lead right now. I am a little bit, again, I drove 12 hours yesterday through the mountains, no cell service through there. Wasn't able to put the scores up. So we'll get to that. We will get you the scores and you will get your points. Wednesday, you've already looked. You've got an idea. What are you thinking?
I think Dallas Edmonton.
I think so too. There's Washington Vegas, which will, a test for Vegas, right? They've only got 5 games left this season. A tough schedule. Washington, one of those teams. Luckily, next Tuesday, Dallas Stars.
Oh, so that'll be a game.
Yeah. All right. Thursday,
there is Boston, Pittsburgh.
Toronto, Tampa.
Oh, yeah. Toronto, Tampa. That's a good game.
I think we need to go with our talk about Pittsburgh. I think we need to go there. Louis Domingue possibly in net for them. No Tristan Jarry, though.
All right. So Boston, Pittsburgh.
Boston, Pittsburgh seems to me that's where I would go.
Okay. Let's do it.
Friday.
Well, the only playoff matchup is Colorado, Edmonton.
Let's do it.
2 Edmonton games this week.
That's fine. We can do that. Lots of great slate on Saturday. We've got Toronto, Florida, Nashville, Tampa, Rangers, Bruins. Those look like the 3 games of note. Or Canucks, Flames, the Red Hot Canucks.
Well, you know what? Let's do Canucks, Flames.
Yeah, that sounds like a great choice.
Let's do the late game on Hockey Night in Canada.
All right. Which then, Sunday, Toronto, Washington, Tampa, Florida, Minnesota, Nashville.
Tampa, Florida.
Battle of
Since we're
Florida.
not going to get that first round matchup, let's do Tampa, Florida.
It's too bad. Which brings us then. What do you do in schedule makers?
Oh, man. Oh, come on. You know what? Everyone should go watch the Raccoons next Monday.
Next Monday, instead of watching the only game on the schedule, which is Chicago Blackhawks, Philadelphia Flyers, which is going to be the game for high sticking, you're going to go watch Raccoons.
Yes. That's the only option here.
And let us know if you've watched Raccoons before. Let us know your thoughts on it. If you've never watched Raccoons and you go and join Nick in his rabbit hole down YouTube, let us know what you think about this
hole.
Canadian classic. Do raccoons live in a hole?
They live under my shed.
You need to fix that.
I know.
Have I told you my skunk story?
Yeah, you did.
Terrifying. Did I tell it on the show or off the show?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Listeners, if you're still listening at this point in time, if you want to hear a skunk story next week, let me know.
We'll open the show with a skunk story next week.
Otherwise, it's just going to be that. All right. At Fourth Line Podcast is our Twitter. Mail at the Fourth Line Podcast. If you have more than Twitter can handle for your Raccoons reviews, send them in there. thefourthlinepodcast.com, where you can find out everything you need about the show. Subscribe. If this is your first time listening, thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe, find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to shows. We are there for you. We're also on Full Press Radio as well as other great hockey content at Full Press Radio and Full Press NHL. 2 more weeks left in the NHL season, Nick. Let's buckle down. See you next week.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Pittsburgh and Carolina hope their goalies come back soon. I'm going to get the heck out of here now and watch a show about Raccoons.